Last week, I talked about the FIFA World Cup coming to Dallas, Texas this summer. And in that video, I really shared all of the highlights, everything that is coming, and a lot of the opportunities that are available to you if you're in the market, especially if you are a business owner. But in this video today, we're gonna talk about all the millions of dollars that have been poured into the infrastructure of Dallas for the World Cup, as well as some areas that will be impacted both positively and negative. Dallas is about to receive more outside investment in a single summer than most cities have in a decade, and almost none of it's going away after the World Cup ends. Here's what that means for anyone thinking about buying here. We are talking about a new $4 billion airport terminal under construction right now, a $2.1 billion commuter rail line that just launched for the first time in the region's history, and a $295 million stadium overhaul, a $3.3 billion convention center rebuild, and a global spotlight that is about to introduce Dallas to billions of people who've never seriously thought about living here. And that's not just a sports story. That is a city's true transformation story. And if you're sitting on a decision about moving to Dallas, buying your first home, or trying to figure out what this market is doing right now, this video is going to give you the clearest picture you've had in a while. My name is Dee, and I live and breathe Dallas real estate market every single day. And what these investments are doing to it is something every serious buyer and seller in the city needs to understand. Let me get to the basics for you. If you couldn't care less about soccer, these numbers matter. Dallas is hosting 9 World Cup matches this summer, more than any other city on earth, and a semifinal is on schedule for July 14th. The global broadcast headquarters for the entire tournament is set up right here in downtown Dallas, where roughly about 4,500 to 5,000 journalists from every country in the world will work for 39 straight days, and up to 7 national team base camps are spread across the Metroplex. The official economic impact estimate is between 1.5 to 2.1 billion flowing through North Texas in one single summer. But here's what most people covering this are missing entirely. That is just the event money. The infrastructure being built around it is completely separate and a much larger story, and it's the infrastructure that changes what Dallas looks like in 2027, 2028, and even 2032. And before we get into all of it, there are neighborhoods in the city that are going to lose from all of this. We'll get to that later, and it's probably not the ones that you are thinking. So what's actually being built? Here's the simplest way to understand what's happening in Dallas right now. Someone just handed the city a check. It didn't have to earn. $295 million went into the AT&T stadium alone. Not to build it, it already exists, just to upgrade it. The field was raised 15 feet. It was widened to the FIFA's international dimensions, and every premium seat and club completely overhauled. And during the tournament, the Cowboys' name comes off the building entirely. For 39 days, it becomes simply Dallas Stadium. Jerry Jones spent $295 million, and that doesn't even get his name on the door. That's how much FIFA controls this thing. But here's what's interesting. The stadium isn't even the biggest investment, not even close. The airport is getting $4 billion, not a renovation, a brand new Terminal F with 31 gates exclusively for American Airlines. And it's under construction right now, with the first phase opening in 2027. That's part of the $12 billion capital plan called the DFW Forward, the largest investment in the airport's history. DFW is already the 3rd busiest airport in the world, handling close to about 90 million passengers a year. The World Cup accelerated this timeline, but this expansion was always going to outlast it. And there's one more thing that has been 40 years in the making. Dallas has had a car problem for as long as anyone can remember. As long as I have been here, there's definitely been a car problem. And it's the first thing that people bring up when you mention moving here. I-35 on Tuesday afternoon, the 45-minute commute that Google Maps says was gonna take 20. October 25th, 2025, 4 months ago, that changed. The DART Silver Line launched. 26 miles of commuter rail connecting Plano, Richardson, Addison, Carrollton, Capel, and Grapevine, all to the DFW airport. Discussions for this started in 1980s, if you can believe it. Land was purchased in the 1990s, and construction finally began in 2019, opening about 4 months ago. For the first time in the region's history, you can get from the airport to the suburbs without a car. It will run every 30 minutes during peak hours, hourly off-peak, and 7 days a week. Now, here's why this matters for anyone thinking about buying in the DFW area. So transit access is one of the most consistent drivers of neighborhood appreciation. Areas within walking distance of new rail station historically outperform surrounding markets over a 3 to 5 year window after its launch. Not because of hype, but because accessibility generally changes how buyers evaluate neighborhoods. The Silver Line just created a brand new corridor of those opportunities, and most buyers haven't updated their mental map of Dallas to account for it just yet. And then there's the piece that almost nobody's talking about. Dallas isn't just hosting matches this summer. Dallas is hosting the entire world media operation. The K. Bailey Hutchins Convention Center downtown becomes the international broadcast center for the full tournament. 4,500 to 5,000 journalists from every country setting up shop in our downtown area for over a month. So every World Cup highlight, every post-game press conference, every broadcast going to a global audience of about 5 billion people, it all comes out of the downtown Dallas area for 39 straight days. The city approved $15 million to prepare for the existing space, and a full $3.3 billion rebuild of the convention center is already fully funded and in motion and scheduled to be completed by 2029. That turns downtown Dallas into a permanent anchor for major international events, corporate gatherings, and the hospitality economy that follows them for the next decade. Here's the thing about all of this investment though. None of this will actually land equally across the city. Some neighborhoods are about to be pulled forward by it, and others might get left behind. And the ones getting left behind might genuinely surprise you. But before we get there, we need to talk about what the market is actually doing right now, because the honest answer is probably not what you've been told. This is where I'm going to tell you something the World Cup cycle does not want you to hear, because it actually makes the opportunity a little bit more interesting and not less. The Dallas housing market has softened. The median home values in Dallas proper is down about 4.6% over the past year, sitting at around $315,000. And inventory has grown significantly. DFW has had its fourth largest increase in active homes for sale amongst the nation's 50th largest metros over the past 12 months. Properties are sitting longer, buyers have more options and more negotiation power than they've had in years. The outer suburbs like Salina, Prosper, Fate have seen some of the steepest declines, and driven by a wave of new construction that's now competing directly with the resale market. More on those in a minute, because they tie directly into the neighborhood question we've been building towards. So before the World Cup even registers, you're in one of the more buyer-friendly DFW markets that we've seen in a long time. Now here's the question that actually matters. What does $12 billion in infrastructure investment and $2.1 billion in economic injection in 39 days of a global spotlight do to a market that's already softened and sitting on some elevated inventory? The answer is it creates a two-speed market, and which speed you end up depends almost entirely on where you're located. Short-term first, because this is the part that's gonna catch people a little bit off guard. Dallas has been flagged by corporate housing analysis as an extreme risk market for the tournament, period. Not media hype. The designation comes from firms that track relocation data across every host city and advise companies on moving their employees. The reason is specific. Dallas cracked down hard on short-term rentals over the last few years, pulling roughly about 7,000 properties off of the Airbnb market. But some of my clients that also have expressed interest in Airbnb have definitely been impacted by this policy. But what it means right now is that with 3.8 million visitors that are expected this summer, that Dallas has significantly less short-term inventory than any other comparable host city, and significantly more demand than it's actually built to absorb. Hotels are already running high occupancy projections. Months out, Airbnb launched a 5 million host city impact program specifically to pull more inventory back online for the tournament. And the math is simple. That many people chasing that few options mean prices will spike, and they will spike fast. So if you're a renter with the lease ending in June or July, you are going to be renewing in the middle of the highest demand window that the city's seen in a long time. And that conversation with your landlord needs to happen now and not in May. Now, the longer term picture, which is where it gets genuinely interesting for buyers, that visitors who come for the World Cup aren't leaving with the same relationship to Dallas that they arrived with. Think about specifically those in that 3.8 million: international business travelers, remote workers with geographic flexibility, high income tourists from Europe and South America who are going to spend a week in the city they've never seriously considered, and discover that Dallas offers a quality of life at a price point that doesn't exist anywhere near their home market. Those people don't immediately list their house and move. They go home, they run the numbers, they have the conversation, and then 6 to 12 months later, they may start quietly reaching out to agents, because when you have that many people visiting and seeing Dallas for the first time and spending that much time here, it may not be a location that is on their map and radar. The World Cup plants that seed, and we may see some of that movement be reflected in the real estate market in late 2026 and 2027. And here's the compounding factor. The infrastructure improvements make the pitch to those people significantly stronger than it would have been about 2 years ago. A $12 billion airport expansion means easier international connections for someone still traveling for work. A new rail line means that they don't have to immediately buy 2 cars. And a rebuilt downtown convention center means long-term economic vitality rather than a city that peaks in July and then goes quiet in August. The city those visitors discovered this summer is going to be more connected, more international, more accessible, and a more visible version of Dallas that existed before. That's what they're going to tell people about. That's what's going to drive the next wave of some inbound interest that we may get from the World Cup. So a little bit about some of the neighborhoods that will win, and maybe even a little bit about some that don't. We've been building to this. So here's where some of the investment actually lands, and here where it doesn't. Downtown and uptown are the clearest plays. The K-Belly Convention Center becoming the global broadcast hub means thousands of high-spending international media professionals anchored in the right corridor for over a month. The convention center rebuild that follows creates a decade-long demand engine for hotels, restaurants, and the residential market that surrounds all of it. The Kleinrohr Park fan zone adds another layer of activated public space that urban buyers have been looking for in Dallas for years. And if you've been on the fence about downtown living, the trajectory of investment here over the next 3 years makes that decision a little bit more clear for you. The Silver Line corridor is the move most buyers haven't made yet. Addison, Carrollton, Richardson, and neighborhoods strung along 26 miles of the rail that launched just about 4 months ago. The transit access changes how buyers evaluate distance, and areas that were previously dismissed as too far from downtown are now about to be reassessed. The buyers who established themselves along this corridor before that repricing happens are the one that will look back at this window as the moment that they really got ahead of the market. Arlington and their entertainment district sits at the physical center of the action with 9 matches and a $295 million stadium upgrade. A district that actually already draws over 15 million visitors a year is about to become internationally recognized. The residential halo effect in that immediate area is real, and it's currently a little bit underpriced. Now the part that most people aren't saying out loud. The outer northern suburbs, Salina, Prosper, Fayette, and much of Collin County and Denton County were already experiencing some of the steepest price erosions in the metro before any of this started, and heavy new construction created a little bit more supply that the resale market is still working through, and the World Cup investment doesn't reach them. None of that infrastructure, the Silver Line, the convention center rebuild, and the downtown fan zones extends to the northern fringe. The buyers that the World Cup attracts won't necessarily be considering Prosper. They're going to be looking at Uptown and Addison, which means that the tailwind that is about to hit the inner core and the Silver Line corridor has no equivalent in the outer suburbs. If you own out there and you've been waiting for the market to recover before selling, the World Cup is really not going to be the thing that impacts your market area. Fair Park and South Dallas are the most complicated conversion in this whole video. Fair Park will be hosting the FIFA Fan Festival, 35,000 people per day for 34 days, free admission, giant screens, concerts, and on paper, that sounds like an enormous opportunity for the surrounding neighborhood. But here's the reality. South Dallas has watched events generate significant revenue at the park for decades without seeing money flow back into the community. And the State Fair of Texas pulls in around 80 million annually. The streets just outside of Fair Park tell a completely different story. So some South Dallas business leaders have been showing up to the World Cup, organizing committee meetings with a specific question: how do we actually get access to the vendor contracts this time? So Council member Adam Bazulda said publicly that gentrification is inevitably coming and the city needs to be intentional about it. Council member Carolyn King Arnold pushed directly for the economic benefit benefit to spread beyond the areas already doing so. So for buyers looking in South Dallas right now, the fundamentals are there: proximity to Fair Park, transit access, price points that don't exist anymore elsewhere, this close to the action. But this is a community that has long memory around exactly this kind of event. If you're buying here, understand that you will be buying into not just the asset, but the neighborhood's history and promises that may or may not be there. So here's the honest bottom line, and it's more nuanced than most World Cup coverage wants to admit. Dallas is receiving a genuine multi-billion-dollar infrastructure upgrade compressed into a single event window. The Silver Line is already running. Terminal F is under construction. The stadium is done. The convention center rebuild is funded, and the $2.1 billion economic injection is coming this summer. And at the same time, the housing market has softened. Prices are down from their peak. Inventory is definitely up, and buyers have more power than they've had in a lot of years. The combination is a city receiving a massive long-term investment while the market is temporarily softened is just the window that we're in. So it's not a guarantee, it's a window. The question is whether or not you understand what it does to the specific part of the market that you care about the most, and is that pretty obvious to everyone else? And if you're not ready yet, watch this video right here on why people are abandoning the Dallas suburbs, and it ties directly into everything we just covered.